Hey guys, I'm gonna upload this one later, but this is gonna cover a lot of ground. Where to begin? So, maybe with the weather, a lot of people for a long time have been speaking about the plain trails. Thousands and thousands of hours of information are online. A lot of it gets taken down, but Shaking My Head Productions has probably a huge file he keeps off of, on a separate hard drive that's not online, so he can pull that information off and protect it. And he has tons of things filed away. And he has a video out now, and you can just sit there and watch them talk about how they make rain with simple processes of ground to air flaring and smoke. And you can watch how NASA has a giant rain-making machine that's supposed to be a jet propulsion testing site. And it goes on and on and on into everything you can think of. Tesla had an earthquake machine. I'm not going to say it right. Renaissance machine that would get to the frequency of something that was vibrating, and then it could match that and increase that and pretty much make earthquakes. There's a Mythbusters episode I was trying to show somebody the proof of this, and even the Mythbusters standing on a bridge with a 2-pound weight in a box that they were doing this with were able to pretty much shake this bridge, and they pretty much got fearful and turned it off. I just watched a video from Pedro V. I don't know if it was his first or second channel, but at the end of it, he put up an article title. I don't know where it is exactly, but you could probably search out the title and find it. But it was talking about the military's meteor shower-like weapon. Now, every time I see one of those dashboard cam meteor events, asteroid or whatever the one that comes in the atmosphere is, that shoots across the sky, and people sit there and, wow, isn't that crazy? Isn't it cool? And this is, it's kind of like that movie Greenland or Deep Impact or what's the other, Armageddon. They show this craziness that happens when it happens, yet every single time they show one of those meteors fly by or do something like that, it never hits the ground. Never is found, never is leaves a hole in somebody's house or hits a car or, hits a mountainside and causes an avalanche or something, just to show proof of that it even happened, or it's like that they show in the movies. The reason that seems so big to me is that I know they have railguns. Now, I made a video about this probably back in 2018. I'll try to find it. It's probably buried deep in my catalog. I did a lot of erasing of just, videos I knew I didn't even need to keep on anymore. But it was talking about, I think it was around the time of the Mount St. Helen, or the Seattle warning that went out, like 11/11. It was based on a bunch of Simpsons episodes, and people were raising alarm, and they had all these proofs of this linking timeline, but it never really came to. But at the same time, doesn't mean that it was set for that year, But I think there's an Economist magazine cover that shows a lot of crazy stuff behind a family in their living room, all the pictures on the wall. And those always seem to have some sort of a cryptic, deeper meaning. But I've done studies on Mount St. Helen, and if you really look into it and look for proof of leftover volcanic remnants, you won't find anything. There's nothing. Not a single piece of lava. There's not a single, they say that, there's no video of lava flowing out of the mountain. And tubes. If there's, if it flowed out, it would have stopped, and it would have cooled, and it would have just, sat in its tracks and be a bed of lava rock. But it went down into this lava valley, and there's no evidence of anything other than blasted rock bits everywhere. And you go into the tubes, and the tubes are giant, big enough to drive a dump truck through, first off. But there's no evidence on the wall that lava flowed through either and left a burnt marking on the wall. And eventually, as deep as you go into the mountain, the caves are collapsed, and they're dangerous. So, it is what it is. Is there proof of a volcano anywhere? Not at all. Is there proof more that they were blowing up the mountain with tons and tons of explosives? That's more probable than a natural disaster. And could they do something on a grander scale? Here they're warning about Yellowstone for decades now. Who knows? But there again, weather modification and kind of catastrophic events, and they can easily manipulate these things. And back to the asteroid. If you look up railgun, especially, I saw it in a Maxim magazine probably 15, 20 years ago when I was getting subscribed to Maxim magazine, and they had an article on it, and it was this giant, it looked like a water slide, a big looping water slide, but it builds up speed and carries the weight of an object, and by the time it gets to the end of the cannon, which they pretty much shortened down into just a straight line, 25-foot tube or line, but even in the article it said they could launch a Honda Civic 20 miles. Think about that. So if you have a semi, and it's like something out of a James Bond flick where they can open it up in a way where they can poke this cannon out and then have a giant magnesium flare the size of, say, like it wouldn't even have to be, probably larger than a basketball, but smaller than a steel drum. Man, I didn't get a coffee. That stinks. Back to this. That's gonna cloud my thought. But imagine that they could just pop this thing open anywhere on a highway or a country road or someplace, and then just go boom, launch some sort of a thing with a timed fuse on it, light it up when it starts its descent, and then it lights up, looks all pretty bright, like a magnesium flare, and lights up the whole sky. And that could be done on a massive scale, because it's just electronics, and so you need nothing but power and magnets and a quick reload, and you could shower a whole city or an area, and then you have this kind of set up across a land, however great, and then just start lighting it up. But they could be building these things in the sides of mountains or something, and think about how massive, depending on the size of the rail, depends on the size of the object. And if you start launching solid objects, especially with magnesium or some sort of a combustible, dangerous, material, magnesium is hot enough to cut through steel, and you can't just put it out, with water. You can, shoot, you can drop it, you spark a flare and drop it in water, and it's not going to put it out if it's a good flare. And think about how much of a expecting the unexpected that would be, because of the constant warnings from, the space agencies that always say, oh, there's a city-sized rock that just, passed Earth, and wow, how amazing that was, and the dangers involved, and what it could have done. But just imagine that now worldwide. And then all of a sudden you got aliens popping up out of nowhere, and they're saying that we need to go with them and trust them and go underground, and be protected from this catastrophe that is coming. And there again, I think that's a Hopi legend of what happened back 1,000 years ago. And then if you go even deeper, look at Elon Musk. He has a boring company, yet nobody's ever heard of anything he's ever bored with his boring company that digs tunnels, underground railways or something. He was talking about doing some underground car delivery system in LA, which was totally the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. But this goes on and on and on. I gotta speed this up because I'm at work, but that would be another danger. You got these aliens telling you to follow them, trust them into our underground layer, and then what happens when you find out, what's really going on? You can't get out. Not saying that any of this stuff is going to happen, not saying that I have any inside information, but these are all things that you can research and find out that they have all this kind of technology. And while this is all happening, imagine on the other side, the right, so-called, is all these mandates and dangers in the bug and the dosing and being part of society or not, and then think that if you're not going to be a part, well, that brings in the chaos and you got to be separated and breaking up of families, yada, yada, yada. But imagine that during all this also, there is a, there is the dividing of the people, camping, depop, large loss of life on the left who are following all this false science stuff. But then you get this rebellion. Now, through rebellion, I almost lost my train of thought, excuse me. Through this rebellion, if you look at Jeremiah 25, like I've spoken, see that he was warning the people they were going to be overthrown and taken, and they were to go into Babylon, and they were to trust in his word. And false prophets arose and told them, no, don't worry about what he's saying. We are to fight for our land and our right, and we have God's backing. Yet God was telling them to listen to Jeremiah, and Jeremiah had the proof of a prophet. But imagine that this comes back in the future. Here they got people that are us warning, witnessing to the people, saying beware of all these things. We are in the season. And they're telling us, no, you need to rise up, fight your government, fight society. And when you do that, when they did that, what happened? They were slaughtered. So imagine these people that are getting primed for riots and rebellion and protest, and you're going to go out into the streets and you're going to riot and protest, and the more you fight them, the more the slaughter will be. Is my prediction for what is going to happen, why they're doing this, because they're not doing all this to fall. They're doing this because once you do that, you've gone against the Bible, the prophecies, the revelation of what is to come. It doesn't say, the people rose up in those days and they followed a king and he led them to glory and then Jesus comes. That's the difference. People who want to make this thing as something new. It's not there. It's not supposed to happen. Vengeance is his. He will repay us and them who do the evil. So it's just something that I want to get out and get down. This covers a lot of bases. I'm going to try to put as much information in. I'm not going to link anything other than my own videos. I'll link that, but I'm not linking. I'll show these things, but I'm not going to put links to other channels. I'll put the channel pictures, and you can search out the titles. But that's the only way that I can continue to protect myself, by wording and not saying those keywords that get, the algorithms going. So just a word to the wise, guys. Hopefully this recorded sound. I did 2 videos yesterday, and the audio didn't pick up at all, so I didn't upload them. But I figured this would be a better way to cover a lot of ground. So just a word to the wise. I'll upload this as soon as I can. God bless.